I don't know if I've ever seen a team with legitimate talent just over and over and over again beat themselves.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Thursday, June 25th, 2026, and welcome back into an exasperated edition of the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here. Let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. And coming up on today's episode, we will recap a series loss for the Orioles, dropping 2 out of 3 in Anaheim against the Angels. But not just any series loss, one that truly sunk me to the depths of Orioles fandom. It must be this team has a humiliation kink. They love to be absolutely embarrassed on television multiple times per week. That may be the only explanation. We'll talk about the second disastrous loss of the week for the Orioles. This one may be even worse. We'll chat about another good start from Kyle Bradish on Monday and the O's doing nothing against Ryan Johnson in Tuesday night's game. We usually do these episodes in chronological order of the games. Obviously, if you've been following along this week, West Coast trip, late games, 9 to 5 job, can't get the recaps out the morning after, so did different episodes on Tuesday and Wednesday. Make sure to check those out. Did a mailbag on Tuesday talking about the CBA and some hitting prospects in AAA. Did a way too early trade deadline preview on Wednesday. Make sure to check that one out. So this is a full series preview, or series recap, I should say, of all 3 games. And again, usually it happens in chronological order, but what I just witnessed as I'm recording here on Wednesday evening was so bad in the day game getaway day finale that I have to start there. Final score in 10 innings from Angel Stadium on Wednesday afternoon. The Angels 7 and the Orioles 6. A walk-off victory for Anaheim gives them a series win over the O's. And the Orioles, with the loss, fall to 38-44, just past the halfway point, 82 games into this season. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from somehow the most disastrous loss of the year after we thought Friday night in LA was going to be that. Oh, no. It's been topped by what just happened on Wednesday. And the first thing you need to know is the Orioles have once again found a new way to beat themselves. And there was some bad baseball played in the first 9 innings of this game, right? Gunnar Henderson misplaying a ball in the first inning with 2 outs. Next batter hits a 2-run homer. Gunnar had another error later that didn't help the O's. A late bullpen meltdown, which we'll get to. I mean, the O's almost dropped the fly ball right before the game-tying play in the 10th inning as Cowser and Taveras almost collided in right center field. But they haven't been playing baseball for an entire, or at least clean baseball for an entire half of a season, but they've had enough talent with a bad enough American League to stay in the race 82 games in. What in the world happened in the 10th inning? I'll set the scene. Runner on third, 2 outs, bottom 10. Orioles leading 6-5. Keegan Aiken is on the mound. The lefty Nolan Schanuel is at the plate for the Angels. He hits a slow roller over to second base, a ball at 67 miles per hour off the bat, a ball with an .050 expected batting average from it. Jeremiah Jackson, playing second base, fields it nicely, scoops it up cleanly. Should be an easy flip to first base, and the Orioles should find a way out of here with a 10th inning victory and a series win in Anaheim, just scraping by. And then the camera pans to first base, and where usually your first baseman, Pete Alonso, would be standing there waiting for the throw, he's nowhere close to the bag. Alonso, who kind of broke to his right first, thinking he might have to get the ground ball, then changed course, but then kind of slowed up because Keegan Aiken was also running over to cover the bag. He was a little late to get over there, but can you blame him? It was a ground ball right to second. Usually not a play the pitcher has to cover first base. Alonso basically slows up Heed's way to Aiken, who can't get there in time. The flip is low from Jeremiah Jackson. Aiken drops the ball. It was going to be a bang-bang play if he caught it anyway. I'm not even sure his foot initially stepped on the bag. So Shanuel's probably safe either way to tie the game. But of course, the throw gets kicked away, and Shanuel's over to get all the way to third base. And then the very next batter, Logan O'Hoppe, hits a ball 19 miles per hour off the bat, a little chopper in front of the plate. Basallo goes to pick it up. He turns, trying to tag Shanuel coming home. Can't tag him. Shanuel scores. Angels walk it off 7-6. Why is Pete? I don't even know what to say. Why is Pete Alonso not covering first base? I get the first instinct to make your first step towards the ball. That's fine. He had time to reverse course and go to first base. Why is he ceding that play to Keegan Aiken? You wasted that Keegan Aiken inning. The fact that Aiken was in there looking for a save with the zombie runner on second base in a one-run game in the bottom of the 10th is something we'll get to. I thought it was going to be a second pitch, two-run walk-off homer by Zach Neto because that's what Keegan Aiken's been doing. Instead, Aiken probably threw his best inning of the season in by far the biggest spot he's pitched in this year, and you're going to waste it by fumbling a routine ground ball to second? Good teams don't do that. Average teams don't do that. Bad teams that beat themselves do that. And that's what the Orioles were on Wednesday, and that is what they have been far too often this season. I said it at the top, I have never seen a team with true talent beat themselves as often as the Orioles do. There are so many close losses the O's have taken this year. They have been really, really bad in one-run games. They've played a lot of one-run games. They've been really bad in them. One of the reasons why they beat themselves in these critical moments. This team could easily be 44-38 and holding a playoff spot comfortably. Instead, they're 38-44 because when the game gets tight and it's time to make a play, they don't make it. What did the Angels do? They made the plays. An unbelievable glove flip by their pitcher, Chase Silseth, in the top of the 10th inning to throw out Blaze Alexander at home and keep the game tied. The Orioles can't field a routine grounder, and the Angels' relief pitchers are the Angels, the probably the most disastrous franchise in the majors right now. Their relief pitchers are making that play, and the Orioles can't field a routine grounder to second to win a baseball game. And it's not like, Jackson just booted it, and it's like, oh, what a terrible error. It was somehow so much worse that he fielded it cleanly, flipped it, and disaster ensued. And of course, again, it gets kicked down the line. If they just botch this, right, and Aiken catches the ball but doesn't step on first and he's safe, Shanuel's still at first. That little tapper by O'Hoppe at worst is an infield single that makes it first and second, and the game's still tied. But of course, the ball gets kicked in the right field, and Shanuel goes all the way to third, and that's the only way he's able to score on that next ball. We got 27 more innings of baseball to talk about, and I don't even know what to say because this team is such a disaster. They are so lucky that everybody else in the American League East, or the American League in general, I should say, the AL slot, they stink too, or we'd be talking about them being much more of sellers at the deadline on yesterday's episode than I was. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. I don't have the words to describe what the Orioles are doing right now. Because as I mentioned, I've never seen a team beat themselves like this when they have talent. I'm sure the 2019 and 2021 and 2007 and 1999 Orioles beat themselves in a ton of games. But those teams did not have the legitimate talent that the 2026 Orioles do. They didn't have Pete Alonso on a heater. They didn't have Samuel Basallo looking awesome at 21. They didn't have a bounce-back Adley Rutschman. They didn't have Kyle Bradish looking like the best starter in the big leagues right now. A lot of those teams didn't have those things. A lot of those teams didn't have the expectations to be a playoff team coming in. A lot of those teams didn't even get themselves in spots where they're leading by 1 in the 10th, and they have a chance to beat themselves. That's the difference. That's the difference with this team. And yeah, I guess we got to talk about the rest of this game, right? You know what? We're gonna go to break here. I'm gonna come back and talk about the rest of this game. I got to reset before I give legitimate analysis for all the other things that happened in Wednesday's loss. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Hims. ED is way more common than most guys think, and millions of men deal with it at some point. Hims offers a simple, convenient way to take care of your health by connecting you with licensed healthcare providers online and giving you access to personalized treatment options from the comfort of home. No awkward appointments, no pharmacy lines, just a straightforward process designed to make getting care easier. Taking care of yourself shouldn't feel complicated, and Hims makes the process private and easy to navigate. It's healthcare built around your schedule and your comfort. They make it really easy for you. The discreetness of it is helpful as well. So to get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/lockedonmlb. That's hims.com/lockedonmlb for your free online visit. One more time, it's hims.com/lockedonmlb. Prescription required. See website for details and important safety information. Sildenafil is the generic version of Viagra. Viagra is a registered trademark of Viatris Specialty LLC. Hims is not affiliated with or endorsed by Viatris. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kick. And now FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal pays. Bet on a match and you get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals means more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. Listen, interesting game tonight, USA and Turkey. Neither team really has anything to play for. Maybe that could mean a 0-0 draw. Maybe that could mean a lot of goals out there as teams are playing fast and loose with it. So maybe you want to put a wager on that one and get those goal bonuses. So from the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. All right, I've pulled myself together slightly to recap the rest of the Orioles' 7-6 loss in 10 innings to the Angels on Wednesday afternoon. The second thing you need to know from that game is Samuel Basallo had his first career 2-homer game. He went deep in both of his first two ABs against really the ace of the Angels staff, the righty Jose Soriano, as Basallo got his first career 2-bomb game. First one went 434 feet deep into the seats in right center, tied the game at 2 in the second inning, second longest home run of Basallo's career. And then the second one was another 2-run homer that just got over the yellow line in right field to put the O's up 5-2 in the third. That ball was 112.5 miles per hour off the bat in terms of exit velocity. Now the hardest hit ball of Samuel Basallo's major league career so far, although I'm confident he'll hit some balls harder than that as he moves on. I think he even did in his time in the minor leagues. And it had been a really rough June for Samuel Basallo so far. You had the injuries, you had the quotes and the weirdness with Craig Albernaz, plus his OPS started with a 4 entering Wednesday's game. He had just 1 homer and 2 total extra base hits in June entering Wednesday when he smashed 2 long balls. Maybe this will allow him to kind of finish this month strong and get back to the Basallo we saw dominating out there in the first couple months of the season. Third thing you need to know from Wednesday is that Pete Alonso provided a lot of the other offense, really all of the other offense for the Orioles. He walked in the second inning and scored on that first Basallo homer. Then he roped an RBI double down the left field line in the third to put the O's up 3-2 and scored on the second Basallo homer, and then had what we thought was going to be the game-winning hit. Comes up with 2 on and 2 out in the top of the 10th inning and pokes an RBI single into right field to put the Orioles up 6-5 in the 10th. That was right after the Angels had made that incredible defensive play to keep it tied. Just another big game from Pete. 3 hits. He also had another single and a walk in the game to go 3 for 4. His 6th multi-hit game in the month of June. Now hitting 300 with a 990 OPS in June. Had a great May. Just has really fully recovered from a rough first month in Baltimore. The O's are kind of getting everything they wanted from Pete, paying him $31 million per year in this contract. Not as much winning as they've wanted, but since a slow start, Pete is absolutely pulling up his end of the bargain. Fourth thing you need to know from Wednesday's loss is that Trey Gibson did his job in this one. Now, his final line looks a little interesting because he only threw 4 innings, 2 runs on 3 hits, 5 Ks, 2 walks, a homer, and just 66 pitches. At 66 pitches, you're thinking, oh, he's got a 5-2 lead, 4 innings, 66 pitches. He is definitely going back out there for the 5th inning, but he did not. And I know there's been some consternation for that move, especially because the Orioles bullpen ended up giving up the lead and, the 3 runs in the 8th inning that allowed the Angels to tie it. But we'll get to that in a moment. For Gibson's 4 innings, he probably should have had 4 scoreless, right? The 2 runs he allowed was on a 2-run Jorge Soler home run in the 1st inning. He got the first 2 batters out. Then Gunnar Henderson misplayed a 2-out grounder. It ended up being scored an infield hit because there wasn't really like a physical error on the play. It was more of a mental error of Gunnar not charging the ball and playing it on a back hop against a speedy runner and couldn't get the throw over to first base in time. And of course, that should have ended the inning. Instead, next batter, Soler, sneaks one over the left field wall to make it 2-0. But Gibson responded with 3 more scoreless innings after that. And it really looked like that he was probably told by Craig Albernaz and Drew French before that 4th inning. The plan was that for that inning to be his last because he ramped up the velo on his fastball, sat 95, and threw his hardest big league pitch at 97.6 miles an hour on a fastball in that 4th inning, a 1-2-3 inning in which he got 2 strikeouts, the best 4-seamers we've seen Gibson throw in a long, long time. In terms of the approach, he really backed off the slider. Remember, that was the pitch he just basically spammed when he faced the Dodgers lineup on Friday night because it was getting so much swing and miss. But the reason why he threw so many sliders, he threw it more than any other pitch in that last start, is because he was still having trouble kind of locating his fastballs in the zone. The difference was on Wednesday is that Gibson actually threw his fastballs in the zone. He had a 78% in-zone rate on his sinker, which was the pitch he threw the most on Wednesday, and a 59% in-zone rate overall for his 66 pitches. Gibson's highest overall zone rate for a start before Wednesday was 48%. So to jump to 59 was a really good stretch in terms of fastball command for Trey Gibson. Something we haven't really seen from him so far this year was good fastball command. He had that on Wednesday. So the question is, why did he get pulled after 4 innings? Well, the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 7-6 loss in extras to the Angels on Wednesday is that I actually loved the aggressive bullpen management from Craig Albernaz in this game. It just didn't work. And this is something we talk about a lot on this show over the years. Good process doesn't always mean good results. Bad process doesn't always mean bad results. It's a results-based game, but everything is going to be process-oriented because it's such a long stretch. You play 162-game seasons. You get large sample sizes. If you continue to go with good process, it is going to lead to good results more often than not if you have the talent. So yes, Gibson was only at 66 pitches through 4 innings. And yes, he had thrown 3 straight scoreless, including a 1-2-3 4th. But he was set to face 1-2-3, top of the Angels order in the bottom of the 5th. Obviously a small sample size, but Trey Gibson, when facing a team the 3rd time through the order, which is what it would have been in the 5th inning, has a 9.00 ERA this season. And MLB starters in general get much worse. Been a lot of data and studies on this, get much worse the 3rd time through the order. There's a name for it, the 3rd time through the order penalty. But it's not just that, right? Because there's not many pitchers that you trust in the big leagues that you're going to pull after 66 pitches of 4 pretty good innings just because the 3rd time is coming up. It was also factoring in the entire situation around this game. You got a rookie starting pitcher, right? And although he's had some good moments, he's been really volatile so far this year, and that's what a lot of rookie starting pitchers look like. Your bullpen is probably the most rested it's been since opening day. They only used 2 relievers in the entire series entering Wednesday. Rico Garcia threw 1 inning on Monday, and Albert Suarez threw the final 3 innings on Tuesday in mop-up duty to save the bullpen. So not only is the bullpen well rested, some of them hadn't pitched in so long that they actually need to pitch to not get rusty. You hear this if you talk to big league relievers. They'll talk about how, we love getting 1 day off. We even love getting 2 days off. But when it starts to get to 3 and 4 days without pitching, it actually has the reverse effect for a lot of relievers where they start to get rusty. And when they finally go out there after, 3 or 4 days off, they're actually worse. That's why some guys, when they come off the injured list, that first outing can be a little clunky. And when you add that to the fact that the Orioles had an off day scheduled on Thursday while they fly home and then take on the Nats in Baltimore on Friday, you had 7 not only fresh relievers out of 8, You had 7 out of 8 relievers who arguably needed to pitch pretty soon. That is very rare for a late June game at the end of a West Coast trip. So when you combine the fact that you have a rested bullpen, Gibson's going third time through, he's a rookie pitcher, and some of these guys probably need to pitch, I was 100% on board with the decision by Albernaz to pull Gibson after 4. I actually said it, the Everydayer Club in the Discord can fact check me. As soon as he made that move, I said I love this move from Albernaz. And even though it didn't work out, I stick by it. I absolutely stick by the decision by Albernaz. It didn't work, but I think it was good management. And the bullpen, listen, it's not like the Orioles have, a top 5 bullpen and lockdown. That would make this a little easier to swallow. They've had their ups and downs. I think they've been better than many thought this year, this bullpen. And, they held it together without Ryan Helsley. They've started to show some cracks, but they are 9th in baseball with a 3.62 bullpen ERA in the month of June. So although there was some shakiness Friday and Saturday against the Dodgers, they really haven't been terrible this month. They've been, at least by ERA, which isn't a great indicator for bullpens, a little bit better than they had been earlier in the season. So there's a lot of reasons for Albernaz to make that move and go to the pen in the 5th. You just don't expect to have 3 different trustworthy relievers have bad outings, right? Like Grant Wolfram should have had a 1-2-3 inning, but Gunnar made an error with 2 outs. So they go to Tyler Wells. He continues to pitch great, gets 4 outs, all strikeouts, scoreless. Then it starts the rough outings, right? Yennier Cano, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, 25 pitches to face 4 batters, just didn't have his command. Rico Garcia came in, got out of the jam in the 7th, but went back out there for the 8th. And that one was when it was concerning, because then he walked a batter, allowed 2 hits, and left with 2 on, 2 out in a 5-3 game for Andrew Kittredge. Kittredge came in. He walks a guy he absolutely needs to go and pitch to, which just basically shut things down. He walked Denzer Guzman, who's a rookie who was hitting second with a lefty on deck. You just got to go at him. He walks the bases loaded, and Wade Meckler grounds a single through the right side, 2-run single to tie the game at 5. I see why he's stuck with Garcia, because you really don't want to use Keegan Aiken in a big spot, and you don't feel great about Helsley, so you probably want to leave Kittredge for behind Helsley. But at the end of the day, like, if you're going to do this bullpen plan, you're throwing everybody out there. You just need to leave one reliever, doesn't matter who it is, for the 10th inning if you get there, and that was always going to be Keegan Aiken, because Albert Suarez, after 3 innings Tuesday, was not available. So I was fine with Kittredge going in there trying to get out of that jam. He just didn't make good pitches. Garcia didn't make good pitches, and honestly, Cano didn't make good pitches because he got behind pretty much every single hitter. And kudos to Ryan Helsley for a bounce-back outing, right? Game was tied in the 9th. He goes 1-2-3 with 2 strikeouts to send it to extra innings. We're all worried about him because it was 2 bad outings off the IL. He looked like dominant Ryan Helsley. If the O's would have even left him with a 1-run lead, the Orioles would have won this game in 9 innings with how unhittable Helsley looked in the 9th. And I thought maybe, he threw 16 pitches in that 9th inning. Maybe they send him back out there for the 10th, but I understand just coming off the IL. I think he only pitched multiple innings once last year, but between the Cardinals and the Mets, just not something he does. So the O's get the run in the top of the 10th, and with a 1-run lead and the zombie runner on second, their only reliever left is Keegan Aiken. And obviously this is the downside of going to your bullpen in the 5th inning. If you keep using guys and a couple guys go poorly, now it took more than one guy pitching poorly for the O's to blow the lead. Yes, Garcia was charged with all 3 runs, but it was Cano, Garcia, and Kittredge who got this thing all out of whack. And those are 3 guys you've generally trusted this year. They go to Aiken, and I'm like, this game's over. They're going to Keegan Aiken at the bottom of the 10th in this spot. I'm like, they're trying to kill me. It's over. And then Keegan Aiken throws his best inning of the season. I have not seen Aiken look better than that. Zach Neto, pinch hits to start the inning. Boom, boom, boom. 1-2-3. Gets him chase a ball outside for a strikeout. Then gets a fly out to right field for out number 2. And then, of course, forces back-to-back slow grounders, both of which should have been the 3rd out of the inning. The first one should have ended the game. And the Orioles defense just, and again, maybe if Aiken catches that ball at first base, maybe he's out. It would have been a very bang play. But I'm not going to blame Aiken for his best inning of the year. I've laid plenty of blame on Keegan Aiken for a long time hosting this podcast. And I got to say, he clears the blame on this one. There's a lot of other guys ahead of him. He looked great. He pounded the strike zone. I think all 12 pitches he threw were strikes, I believe, in that outing. I'm now fact-checking myself on that, but I think they were all strikes. Maybe 11 out of 12 were strikes. Either way, like, He just pounded the strike zone against a struggling, generally, offense, and it worked until the Orioles, of course, as they've done too many times this year, shot themselves in the foot. All right. We're going to kind of pass over recapping Tuesday's loss. It was a 5-1 game. Ryan Johnson, who I like a lot as a prospect for the Angels, they just rushed him to the big leagues. That's why his ERA was 10. But he was an incredible college pitcher. He was a third-round pick. He's got a lot of talent. And he threw 6 scoreless and flummoxed the Orioles. They didn't get their first hit until the 6th inning. Shane Baz had some weird command, and he just wasn't missing bats in the zone once again. And, kudos to Albert Suarez for throwing 3 scoreless and mop-up duty for saving the bullpen. That's what I've got on Tuesday's game. Let's at least finish on a positive note with the one win in this series, dominance from Kyle Bradish on Monday night. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent, it's about having everyone working towards the same goal. And that's true in sports just like in business. You need everyone working towards the same goal of getting that final out at first base. And that didn't seem to be the case for the Orioles on Wednesday. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's ODOO.com/lockedon. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos can show up fast. Maybe you're trying to field a ground ball at second base, and then there's nobody to flip it to at first. Well, that's where Indeed Sponsored Jobs comes in. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on skills, catching the ball at first base, experience, knowing when to go to first base, and location, standing on first base to catch the ball. Finding the right person can make all the difference, whether it's building a business or building a winning team. Maybe the Orioles need Indeed Sponsored Jobs. So spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, let's cap off this episode with the Orioles' one win of this series this week. It was the opener on Monday. Final score, Orioles 6 and Angels 1 in that one. Gave them a 3-game winning streak. Of course, they then lost on Tuesday, and they still have failed to get any 4-game winning streak so far this year. But I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from that win on Monday. And the first thing you need to know is Kyle Bradish was incredible again. Coming off of 7 2/3 innings, 1 run against Seattle when he struck out 12. He goes 8 scoreless innings, and this one in Anaheim against the organization that drafted him and almost immediately traded him to the Orioles for Dylan Bundy. 8 scoreless, 6 hits, 9 Ks, 1 walk, 101 pitches for Bradish, who dominated again. This is according to Birdland metrics. Only Bradish and Jacob Mizorowski, who's probably going to win the Cy Young in the NL, are the only 2 pitchers this year to have a 2-start stretch where they racked up at least 15 total innings and at least 21 total strikeouts across those back-to-back starts. And it's kind of unreal how Bradish played the sinker and the slider off of each other in this start. 79% of his pitches Monday night were either sinker or slider. He only got 1 single swing and miss on the sinker, but 7 of his 9 strikeouts came on that pitch. Why? They were all strikeouts looking. Every time the Angels hitters expected slider with 2 strikes, guess what they got? They got a sinker dotted on the corner. Meanwhile, he got 9 whiffs on the slider because every time with 1 strike or 0 strikes, Angels hitters expected a sinker, they got a slider and they chased it out of the zone. But Bradish didn't go to it for the strikeouts. He went to the curveball and the sinker. They tunneled off each other perfectly, starting kind of down and away on the corner and either running back to the plate or diving down and away where they can't be hit. And that helps when you can throw the sinker in the strike zone like it's nothing. 75% in zone rate on his sinker. his highest ever in a career start in which he's thrown at least 10 sinkers in the game. That's probably arguably a few too many sinkers in the strike zone, and a better offense probably takes advantage. Obviously, facing the Angels certainly helps you throw 8 scoreless, but Kyle Bradish is looking ace material in these last couple of starts. Second thing you need to know from Monday night is that Leody Taveras had to play third base in this game. Let me say that again. Leody Taveras, who had never played the infield in his major league career, which is dated back, pre-COVID, had to play third base. Here's how it happened. Blaze Alexander, starting at third base, fouled a ball off his knee in the second inning and then was seen limping in the dugout in the third inning and left the game. Luckily, Craig Abernathy said it was just soreness. He was day-to-day. He was out Tuesday, but he was back in the lineup on Wednesday, so all good there on Blaze. But here's the issue. Jackson Holliday suffered a groin injury that forced him to leave the game late on Saturday against the Dodgers. He didn't play Sunday, and apparently he was still not available to play on Monday. Didn't even have the full jersey on, had like the warm-up t-shirt on in the dugout, and all of your other infielders were already in the lineup. Jeremiah Jackson started at second base, and Kobe Mayo was the starting DH against the left-handed pitcher. So you could have put Mayo in at third base, but that means if you take him out of DH and put him in the field, you burn the DH. That essentially means you lose the DH for the rest of the game, and your pitcher has to hit. Now, the Orioles did that in the 8th inning. When it got down to crunch time, they put, even though Mayo's not a good defender, an actual, quote-unquote, actual third baseman at third. That's fine in the 8th inning, but if you do it in the 3rd inning, you lose the DH for the rest of the game, and the pitcher has to hit, and that's not good. And I think the Orioles made the right calculation because the pitcher spot was guaranteed to hit 2 more times and likely was going to come up 3 more times to the plate in that game. The Orioles basically made this calculation. They said, we think there will be 3 ABs for the pitcher, and there will be 3 or fewer chances for Leody Taveras at third base before we actually take him out late in the game. And guess what? They were right, because as baseball usually does, the very first play in the bottom of the 3rd inning when Taveras entered at third was a ground ball to third. And he made the play. Not a great throw. Alonso picked it out, but he got the out. And then Taveras did not see a single other ground ball through the next 4 innings that he played at third. I was kind of shocked the Angels didn't try to bunt a few times, just kind of test him at a position he had never played. The only qualm I maybe had is this, if you already know Jackson Holliday's not available and you're short an infielder on the bench, you kind of set yourself up for this potentially happening by putting your other infielder, Kobe Mayo, at DH. Now, I get why they did it. You wanted all the righties in the lineup against the Angels' left-handed pitcher. It worked out. It is what it is. Taveras stood there the rest of the game after making 1 play. They won the game. It ended up being kind of a lighthearted, funny moment. Craig Abernathy was asked afterwards about it. He said he first asked Colton Cowser to play third base, and he said Cowser, quote, pooped his pants when being asked about that. He also asked Taylor Ward in spring training about playing some third base, and Ward said he would rather catch. Ward, who used to play both of those positions, played 353 innings at third base in the majors for the Angels early in his career, also caught 2 innings for the Angels as well. He was a minor league catcher drafted at that position. So he wasn't going there either. And so Leody Taveras apparently was that final decision. Funny moment. All the happiness ended after that game from this series. Third thing you need to know from Monday, Kobe Mayo showed that I think he's just a platoon bat, right? Which at this point for the Orioles might be okay. He was the DH for a reason in this game. As I mentioned, he's mashing lefties. A 201 WRC plus for Kobe Mayo against left-handed pitchers this season. Among hitters who have faced at least 60 lefties this year, that is the 3rd best hitter against lefties in all of MLB. And he delivered again, a 3-run homer off the Angels lefty starter Sam Aldegari in the 4th inning, put the O's up 4-0. Just a bullet down the left field line at 113 off the bat. Kobe's 3rd hardest hit ball of the year. And the crazy thing is, with how incredible he's been against lefties, he's been borderline unplayable against righties. His 26 WRC plus against right-handed pitching, I believe that was entering Wednesday, is the worst in Major League Baseball among guys who have gotten at least 150 plate appearances against righties this year. So there could be a point this year where Kobe Mayo is the best hitter in the league against lefties and the worst against righties. Wild career Kobe is having in the big leagues so far. Fourth thing we need to know from Monday's win is that Taylor Ward had a nice greeting for his old home ballpark. Of course, traded from the Angels to the O's for Grayson Rodriguez this offseason, played his entire career before that with the Halos, and as the leadoff hitter in his 4th pitch back in Anaheim, he hits a solo home run out to right center field off Aldegari. He had 113 homers in his 6 years with the Angels, including 55 of them at Angel Stadium. His first one hit there in another uniform. Also had a single and 3 hard hit balls. Hey, it was kind of a rough May for Ward at a 581 OPS, but that got him up to an 803 OPS in June. Only one game in the entire month of June, and that made it 2 on Tuesday. Still, only 2 games the entire month of June in which Ward has not reached base, so he's starting to kind of turn things back around the other direction. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles series opening 6-1 win over the Angels on Monday night is that maybe Gunnar Henderson's heating up a little bit. Now, let's be fair, he didn't super keep this going. He had a 1-for-4 on Tuesday, and then he had an 0-for-4 on Wednesday. But on Monday, he went 3-for-4 with a triple, 2 singles, an RBI, and a walk in this game. That got his OPS up to 832 in June, but most importantly, got him to a 385 on-base percentage in June. He had a 273 on-base percentage on the season entering June. He's a 340 on-base guy for his career, and that's because he wasn't walking and he was chasing a ton. But in June, strikeout rate cut almost in half to 17%, walk rate almost doubled to 15%, chase rate went down by 10% as well, all way better than they had been. And that was just his 4th game of the season in which he reached base 4 times. 3 of them have been in the month of June. So although he didn't do much the rest of the series, Gunnar at the very least is looking much better this month, and hopefully that continues in a positive direction as the season goes on. And hopefully this Orioles season continues in a positive direction, because that was an absolute unmitigated disaster on Wednesday. But you know what? When they lost to the Dodgers and blew the lead in the 9th inning on Friday night, I said that was the most disastrous loss of the season. And you know what they did? They turned around and won 3 games in a row, including 2 in a row against the 2-time defending world champs who hadn't lost back-to-back games in a month. So maybe the Orioles need to be punched in the face completely to play their best baseball. And maybe that means they'll sweep the Nats this weekend. They certainly need the off day today, and I feel like I certainly need it too. But I still got an episode coming for you tomorrow. We're at the halfway point. We're 82 games into a 162-game season, recapping everything that's happened from the first half and what to make of it is coming up on tomorrow's episode. But until then, if you like the show, check out the Everydayer Club. $5 per month. You can get ad-free episodes of the show. You can also get access to our Everydayer Club Discord channel. We were all going through it, but we were going through it together in the Discord channel on Wednesday, and you can be a part of that by signing up. You get a 7-day free trial to check it all out as well. You can go to lockedonorioles.supercast.com. Support on YouTube, support on Apple Podcasts, support on Spotify. You can always email me at lockedonorioles@gmail.com as well. Back tomorrow for a first half recap episode. It's not going to be the most fun in the world, but we'll try to put a positive spin on it as possible and then get you ready for O's Nats. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.